They thought he was dying. They were wrong. In a locked VIP hospital room, Mafia boss Adrian Voss lies motionless. A king reduced to silence, machines breathing for him, tubes snaking from pale skin. His empire trembles, his enemies gather, and at his bedside, the two men he trusted most are planning his funeral. But Adrian isn't dying. He's listening. Every breath controlled, every muscle frozen, every word they speak cataloged, filed, weaponized. The Silent King is about to wake up, and when he does, blood will answer for betrayal. Stay with me until the end. Hit like and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. The morphine drip hadn't worked in 3 days. Adrian Voss knew this because he'd counted every drop that entered his vein, felt the cold liquid chase through his bloodstream, and do absolutely nothing. No fog, no drift, just crystalline awareness trapped inside a body that wouldn't move. The doctors called it locked-in syndrome. A stroke, they said. Massive, catastrophic, the kind that turned a man into furniture. They were half right. Adrian had engineered the collapse himself. Potassium chloride in his morning espresso. Just enough to simulate the symptoms. Just enough to make it convincing. He'd spent 6 months researching the dosage with a disgraced anesthesiologist in Prague. The man had assured him the paralysis would be temporary, reversible with the right enzyme blocker. What the anesthesiologist hadn't mentioned was the pain. Every nerve in Adrian's body screamed in a frequency no one else could hear. His muscles locked in positions that strained tendons, compressed joints, turned his spine into a rod of fire. He couldn't blink, couldn't swallow. The ventilator breathed for him in mechanical rhythm. In, pause, out, pause. A metronome counting the seconds of his self-imposed hell. But he could hear everything. The board meets in 72 hours, Marcus Kane said. Adrian recognized the voice before he even finished the sentence. Marcus. 20 years at his right hand. The man who'd taken a bullet for him in Marseille, who'd stood as godfather to his daughter, who'd sworn blood loyalty on his mother's grave. Marcus, who was currently standing 3 feet from his hospital bed, discussing his murder. That's not enough time. Victor Hale's voice came from somewhere near the window, clipped, precise. The legal mastermind who'd kept Adrian out of federal prison for 15 years. We need to move before the vote. Once they confirm him incapacitated, the succession clause activates. If he's still breathing when that happens, he won't be. The certainty in Marcus's voice was almost admiring, almost professional. Adrian wanted to smile. Couldn't. The paralysis held him in a mask of slack-jawed vacancy, eyes half open and staring at nothing. To the world, he was a vegetable. To himself, he was a coiled spring waiting for the lock to release. The neurologist said he could linger like this for months, Victor continued. Years, even. We can't wait that long. Romano's already sniffing around the docks. The Koreans think we're weak. Every day he lies here, we lose ground. I'm aware of the situation, Victor. Then you understand we need a clean exit, something that doesn't raise questions. Marcus moved closer. Adrian tracked the sound of his footsteps on the tile floor, Italian leather, probably the Ferragamos he'd bought him last Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on him. I've got someone at the hospital, Marcus said quietly. Sympathetic to our cause. It'll look like a complication. Happens all the time with stroke patients. Infection, clot. Heart gives out. No one questions it. When? 70 hours, right before the board vote. That way there's no gap in leadership. You and I step in as co-executors of the estate. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, we control everything. Victor was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried something Adrian recognized. The particular flavor of greed trying to dress itself as pragmatism. And his daughter? Sophia's in London, keeps her distance from the family business. She won't fight us for control. She might fight us for justice. Then we'll handle that too. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Adrian's daughter, his brilliant, stubborn, beautiful daughter who'd chosen medicine over the family empire, who'd walked away from everything he'd built because she believed in something cleaner than power. They were talking about killing her as casually as ordering lunch. Something in Adrian's chest, not his heart, something deeper, turned to ice. You're sure about this? Victor asked. There's no walking this back. Adrian's finished either way, Marcus said. This way, we control the narrative. We honor his legacy. We keep everything he built from falling apart. We keep everything he built for ourselves. Same thing. Marcus moved even closer now. Adrian could smell his cologne, Tom Ford, the oud wood blend. How many times had they sat in his office, drinking 20-year scotch and planning operations? How many times had Marcus called him brother? "Goodbye, old friend," Marcus whispered. The hand that settled on Adrian's shoulder was warm, gentle, even. The touch of a man saying farewell to someone he loved. Except love didn't hire assassins. The door opened and closed. Their footsteps faded down the corridor. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. The ventilator breathed, and Adrian Voss, the silent king, lay perfectly still and recalculated everything. 3 days earlier, the plan had been simple. Fake the stroke. Let the chaos unfold. Watch as his organization revealed itself, the loyal, the ambitious, the weak, the dangerous. Adrian had spent 30 years building an empire, and he knew better than most that success bred snakes. They coiled in the grass, waiting for the lion to sleep. He'd wanted to see them slither into the light. He'd expected betrayal. That was the game. What he hadn't expected was Marcus. Anyone else, he could have predicted. Victor was ambitious, always had been. The accountants, the soldiers, the underbosses, they were all playing their own angles. But Marcus was supposed to be different. The paralysis gave him time to think. Too much time. Every minute stretched into an hour, every hour into a week. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even shift his eyes to break the monotony of staring at the same square of ceiling tile. But he could listen. The nurses came and went. They talked to him like he was a child or a pet. Simple words, exaggerated tones. They adjusted his sheets, checked his vitals, rotated his position to prevent bed sores. The indignity of it burned, but Adrian had learned patience in places where impatience got you killed. The neurologist visited twice a day. Dr. Reeves. Mid-50s, overworked, genuinely sympathetic. He explained Adrian's condition to the empty room like he was teaching a class. Locked-in syndrome is rare but not unheard of in severe brainstem strokes. The patient remains conscious but cannot move or communicate. He'd paused, searching for a word that wasn't cruel. Isolating. Isolating. That was one word for it. The physical therapist came every morning to move his limbs, prevent muscle atrophy. She hummed while she worked, old jazz standards mostly. Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald. Adrian appreciated that she didn't talk at him like the others, but it was the night nurse who changed everything, Lena Brooks. She started her shift at 11 p.m., right when the hospital descended into its after-hours quiet. Most of the staff avoided his room. Something about coma patients unnerved people, made them remember their own mortality. Not Lena. She came in every night, right on schedule. Checked his vitals, adjusted his IV, made sure the ventilator was functioning correctly. She was efficient but not cold, professional but not detached. And she talked to him. Not at him. To him. "I know you probably can't hear me," she'd said the first night, "but I'm going to talk anyway. My grandmother always said conversation is good for the soul. Yours and mine both." She'd settled into the chair by his bed and proceeded to tell him about her day. A difficult patient in the ICU. A resident who couldn't start an IV to save his life. The cafeteria running out of the good coffee. Adrian had listened because he had no choice. But somewhere around the third night, he'd started listening because he wanted to. Lena had a voice that didn't demand anything, didn't perform. She just talked about her life, her shifts, the small indignities of working nights. She mentioned a sister in Philadelphia, a nursing program she wanted to apply to, a car that needed new brakes she couldn't afford. She never asked for anything, never treated him like a prop in her own drama. On the fifth night, she'd said something that made Adrian's frozen blood run cold. "I think something's wrong with your medication." She'd been checking his chart, cross-referencing the prescriptions with the IV bag. Her voice had dropped, gone quieter. "These dosages don't make sense. Morphine should be helping with pain response, but your vitals show stress indicators. And this..." She'd tapped something on the chart. "This combination could suppress respiratory function. If you weren't on the ventilator..." She'd stopped herself, gone quiet. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight it hadn't before. "I'm going to talk to Dr. Reeves in the morning. Something isn't right." She hadn't, because the next night she'd come in shaking. Adrian heard it in the way she moved, quick, nervous steps instead of her usual steady rhythm. She'd checked the door twice before approaching his bed. "I need to tell someone," she'd whispered. "I don't know if you can hear me. I don't even know if I should be saying this. But if you can, if some part of you is still in there, you need to know." She'd pulled the chair close, so close Adrian could hear the slight catch in her breathing. "They're going to kill you." The machines had continued their steady beep. The ventilator breathed. I heard them. 2 men. One of them called himself Marcus. They were in the stairwell during my break. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but they were talking about you. About making it look like a complication. About timing it before some board meeting. Her voice cracked. "I went to Dr. Reeves. He told me I was stressed, working too many nights, hearing things. He told me patients like you generate anxiety in staff. He told me to take a few days off." She'd laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I checked the security logs. Someone's been accessing your room outside of scheduled visits, twice in the last week, both times after midnight. Both times the cameras in this hallway went to static for exactly 4 minutes. Lena had stood then, paced to the window, and back. "I don't know what to do. I could go to administration, but what if they're involved? I could call the police, but what evidence do I have? A conversation I overheard? Camera glitches? They'll think I'm paranoid or looking for attention or—" She'd stopped pacing, stood at the foot of his bed. "I know who you are, Mr. Voss. I looked you up after the first night. I know what they say you've done. I know you're not. I know you've hurt people." The honesty of it cut through the room. "But you're still a person, and what they're planning, that's murder. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what kind of man you are. I'm a nurse. I took an oath." She'd moved back to his side then, put her hand on his, warm, solid, real. "If you can hear me, I'm going to find a way to stop this. I don't know how yet, but I will. I promise." That was when Adrian made his decision. The paralysis was temporary, reversible. All he needed was time and the right catalyst. The enzyme blocker was synthesized from a rare Brazilian plant extract. He'd had it smuggled in through his network weeks ago, hidden in a false-bottom cologne bottle in his personal effects locker. But getting to it required movement, and movement required help. He'd spent 3 days building up enough voluntary control to do what came next. 3 days of forcing individual muscle fibers to fire, to remember their purpose. It was like learning to walk again, except he had to do it from the inside out, with nothing but will and spite to fuel him. On the 4th night, when Lena came in for her shift, Adrian blinked. Once. Deliberately. She didn't notice. She was checking his vitals, adjusting the ventilator settings, moving through her routine. He did it again, slower this time, held it for a beat. Lena froze. She stared at him, at his eyes, waiting. Adrian blinked twice, fast. "Oh my God!" Her hands went to her mouth, her eyes went wide. Are you? One blink. Once for yes? One blink. Twice for no? One blink. Lena sat down hard in the chair. For a moment, she just stared at him, processing. Then her training kicked in. "Are you in pain?" 2 blinks. "Can you hear me when I talk to you?" 1 blink. "Could you always hear me?" 1 blink. She put her hand over her heart like she was trying to keep it from jumping out of her chest. "The men I heard, they're really planning to kill you?" 1 blink. "Before the board meeting?" 1 blink. "Do you know who they are?" 1 blink. She grabbed the chart, started flipping through pages with shaking hands. "I need to tell someone. Dr. Reeves, the police—" Adrian blinked frantically, desperately. Two. Lena stopped. "No? Why not? They can protect you." 2 blinks. Sharp. "You don't trust them?" 1 blink. She sat back thinking. Her mind was quick. Adrian could see it working through the implications. "They're part of it," she said slowly. "The hospital, the police, they're—" 1 blink. Jesus. She ran her hands through her hair. Okay. Then what do we do? I can't just— You can't move, you can't talk. How do we— Adrian blinked once and then forced his eyes as far to the left as he could manage. It took everything he had. The strain sent lightning through his skull. Lena followed his gaze to the small locker against the wall, his personal effects. In there? One blink. She crossed the room, opened the locker. His clothes hung neatly, the suit he'd worn the day of his collapse. His watch, his wallet, and the cologne bottle. What am I looking for? Adrian couldn't answer that with blinks. He moved his eyes down, then up. The cologne? One blink. She picked it up, examined it, turned it over in her hands. There's something about this. Something I need to... She stopped, looked closer at the bottom. This seam isn't right. It's... Her fingernail found the catch. The false bottom released with a small click. Inside was a vial, clear liquid, and a syringe. What is this? Adrian couldn't answer, could only stare and hope she understood. Lena looked at the vial, then at him, then back at the vial. This is medicine? For you? One blink. It'll help you wake up? One blink. How much? All of it? One blink. She held the vial up to the light, checking for what? Tampering? Contamination? Proof this wasn't poison? If I do this and something goes wrong, 2 blinks. Fast. I could lose my license. I could go to jail. One blink. Yes, I know. And if I don't do this, they kill you in... She checked her watch. 62 hours. One blink. Lena stood there, holding his life in a glass vial, weighing her oath against her fear. Finally, she uncapped the syringe. My grandmother used to say trust is just faith with better PR. She drew the liquid into the barrel. I'm really hoping she was right. She found a port in his IV line, swabbed it with alcohol. How long until this works? Adrian couldn't answer. He didn't actually know. The anesthesiologist had said 6 to 8 hours. Maybe less. Maybe more. Okay. Lena steadied herself. Here we go. She injected the enzyme blocker into the line, and then they waited. The first thing that came back was smell. Not all at once. It crept in slowly, like color bleeding into a black and white photograph. Antiseptic, plastic, the faint chemical sweetness of the IV solution, then taste, bitter, the residue of medications coating his tongue, then pain, real pain, not the locked-in nerve fire, but actual, physical, glorious pain. His muscles cramping as they remembered how to receive signals, his joints screaming as inflammation flooded back into tissue. Adrian would have cried out if he could have. Instead, he lay there and felt his body wage war with itself, fighting to remember what alive felt like. Lena watched the monitors, watched his vitals spike and settle, spike and settle. Your heart rate's increasing, blood pressure's up, respiratory rate, the ventilator's fighting you. You're trying to breathe on your own. She was right. Adrian's lungs were remembering their job. The machine forced air in, his body tried to pull it in itself. The two rhythms clashed, created a suffocating sensation that made panic claw at his chest. I need to adjust the settings. Just hold on. She moved quickly, efficiently. Reduced the ventilator's pressure. Let his lungs take over more of the work. The suffocation eased. Feeling came back in patches. His left hand first, fingers he could twitch, then flex. His right foot, his shoulder. Can you move anything? Lena whispered. Adrian focused everything on his right hand, pushed every ounce of will into the fingers. They curled. Just slightly. Just enough. Holy shit! She grabbed his hand, squeezed it. Squeeze back if you can. Adrian did. Weak, trembling, but deliberate. Lena laughed. A bright, shocked sound that didn't belong in the quiet darkness of the room. Okay, this is real. This is happening. She checked the door again, paranoid. We need to be careful. If anyone finds out you're waking up... Adrian squeezed her hand. Agreement. Can you talk? He tried. Moved his jaw, felt muscles respond, pushed air through his throat. What came out was a sound like grinding gravel. Don't force it. The intubation tube's been in for days. Your throat's going to be raw. Adrian tried again, slower, shaped his mouth around the word. Low... Lena? He squeezed her hand. Yes. I'm here. I'm right here. He swallowed, felt felt the ventilator tube scrape, tried again. How long? His voice sounded like something dead crawling out of a grave, but it was his. Since I gave you the injection? 4 hours. Board meets? 58 hours from now. Adrian processed that. 58 hours to regain enough function to fight back, to turn the trap around, to make Marcus and Victor pay for every word they'd spoken over his supposed corpse. Need time. I know, but the morning shift comes on in 6 hours. If someone sees you moving, talking, wait. She nodded. What do you need me to do? That was the question. What did he need? Evidence first, proof of the conspiracy, then leverage, then phone. Your phone? No, yours. Lena pulled her cell from her pocket, unlocked it, held it where he could see the screen. What am I looking for? Adrian's mind was still sluggish, thoughts moving through molasses, but the core of it was clear. Camera. Record them. Marcus and the other one? Victor? Yes. They come back. When? Every night, after midnight, when no one's watching. I can hide it, set it to record video, but they'll find it if they look. Adrian thought. His personal effects. The locker. Cologne bottle. Camera. Inside. Lena looked at the empty vial in the false bottom. It's small enough. If I position it right, do it. She moved quickly, setting up her phone to record, testing angles. She wedged it into the cologne bottle, checked the field of view. It'll capture the whole room, but the audio might be rough. Good enough. She placed the bottle back in the locker, left the door slightly ajar. If they notice, they won't. Too arrogant. Lena returned to his bedside. Her hand found his again. What happens after we have the recording? Depends. What they say. And if they don't say anything incriminating? They will. Can't help themselves. It was true. Men like Marcus and Victor, they needed to perform their intelligence, their superiority. They'd talk, they'd brag. They always did. You should sleep, Lena said. Save your strength. Can't. Need to practice. Practice what? Playing dead. Bus. The next 57 hours were the longest of Adrian's life. He spent the daylight hours frozen. Every time someone entered the room, doctors, nurses, therapists, he locked himself back into paralysis. It was harder now that his body wanted to move, wanted to respond. He had to fight his own nervous system, suppress every instinct. The neurologist came by, checked his charts, shook his head sadly. No change. I'm sorry, Mr. Voss. Wherever you are, I hope it's peaceful. A janitor mopped the floor, humming gospel music. A social worker spoke to him about advanced directives and quality of life. Through it all, Adrian remained perfectly still, perfectly silent. But at night, when Lena came on shift, he practiced. She closed the door, checked the hallway, and then let him work. He started with fingers, then hands, then arms. His right side came back faster than his left. The paralysis had affected the left hemisphere more severely, but he pushed through, forced the neural pathways to reconnect. By the second night, he could sit up with assistance. By the third, he could hold a cup of water in a trembling grip. This is insane, Lena whispered, watching him force his legs to bend. You should be in physical therapy for months, not days. Don't have months? I know, but you're going to hurt yourself if you push too hard. Already hurt. She couldn't argue with that. They worked in the darkness, in the quiet spaces between medical checks. Lena guided him through movements, supported his weight when his legs wouldn't hold him, caught him when he stumbled. Why are you doing this? He asked one night, between exercises. She'd looked at him like the answer was obvious. Because it's right. I'm not a good man. I know what you are, Mr. Voss. Adrian. I know what you are, Adrian. I looked you up, remember? I know about the arrests, the allegations. I know people call you a criminal. They're not wrong. Maybe not. But right now you're a patient, and someone's trying to kill my patient. That makes it my problem. Dangerous problem. She'd smiled at that, small, sad. My grandmother used to say the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to stand around wondering if they should get involved. I'm involved now, for better or worse. Adrian studied her in the dim light. This woman who'd stumbled into his war by accident, who'd chosen to stay when she could have walked away. After this, you should disappear. They'll come for you. I know. You'll lose everything. I know. Then why? Lena had looked at him for a long moment before answering. Because someone has to. Because I can. Because if I don't, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what happened to the man I could have saved. She'd helped him back into bed then, repositioned him into his coma pose. Besides, she'd added, adjusting his IV, you're going to owe me when this is over. I'm thinking medical school tuition. Full ride. Despite everything, Adrian had almost laughed. On the fourth night, 12 hours before the board meeting, Marcus and Victor returned. Adrian heard them coming, recognized their footsteps in the hallway, Marcus's confident stride, Victor's quicker pace. He locked himself back into stillness, forced his breathing to shallow, let the ventilator do its work. The door opened. Last chance to back out, Victor said. We're past that. They moved into the room. Adrian tracked them by sound. Marcus to the left, by the window. Victor to the right, near the monitors. The doctor comes at 6 a.m., Marcus continued. Brings the morphine dose like scheduled. Except this time, there's a little extra potassium chloride in the mix. Heart stops. Resuscitation attempted. Unsuccessful. Time of death, 6:15. And Dr. Reeves will sign off? Already agreed. He thinks he's helping end suffering. Very humanitarian of him. Victor laughed. Cold. Precise. What about the nurse, the Brooks woman? She's been asking questions. Adrian's blood went cold. Handled. She's being reassigned to ICU tonight. Someone else takes this floor. You're sure? I'm sure. After tomorrow, none of this matters anyway. We'll be running the organization. The board will rubber stamp it. 6 months from now, Adrian Voss will be a memory. A profitable memory. The most profitable kind. They were quiet for a moment. Adrian could feel them staring at him, evaluating the corpse that used to be their king. You know what's funny? Marcus said finally. I actually feel bad. He was a good boss, better than most. Sentiment's expensive. I know, doesn't make it less true. Marcus moved closer, put his hand on Adrian's shoulder again, that same gentle touch from days ago. You taught me a lot, old man. How to think, how to plan, how to see 3 moves ahead. He paused. You just didn't see this one coming. Victor's phone buzzed. He checked it, typed a response. We should go. The longer we're here, the more risk. Yeah. They moved toward the door, Victor first, then Marcus. Just before they left, Marcus turned back. Sleep well, Adrian. You've earned it. The door closed. Their footsteps faded. And in the locker, Lena's phone captured every word. She came in 20 minutes later, shaking. They reassigned me. I'm supposed to be in ICU starting in an hour. I know. Heard them. They're going to do it in the morning, 6 a.m. The doctor's in on it. Adrian's jaw clenched. Recording? Lena pulled her phone from the locker, checked the footage. Got it. All of it. Clear audio, clear video. Send it. My lawyer. Outside contact. Who? Adrian gave her a name. A number. A woman in Manhattan who'd kept his secrets for 20 years and would know exactly what to do with evidence of a conspiracy. What do I tell her? Everything. She'll handle it. Lena sat on the edge of his bed, suddenly exhausted. I can't believe this is real. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and it'll just be a normal shift and you'll still be in a coma and none of this will be happening. Believe it. I'm scared. Good. Means you're smart. She looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who dragged himself back from paralysis through nothing but will and rage. What happens tomorrow? Adrian smiled. It wasn't a kind expression. Tomorrow, the king wakes up. The lawyer's name was Rachel Ang, and she picked up on the second ring despite it being 3 a.m. This better be life or death, she said, her voice sharp even through sleep. Lena gripped the phone tighter, standing in the hospital stairwell where no cameras could see her. It is, both. Who is this? My name is Lena Brooks. I'm calling about Adrian Voss. Silence. Then Rachel's voice came back, all business now, awake. What about him? He's alive, conscious, and someone's trying to kill him in 3 hours. I'm going to need you to start from the beginning. Lena did. She spoke quickly, keeping her voice low as she explained everything. The overheard conversation, Adrian's awakening, the recording, the planned murder disguised as medical complication. She sent the video file while she talked, heard Rachel's sharp intake of breath as she watched it. Son of a bitch, Rachel muttered. Marcus, I always knew he was ambitious, but this… Can you stop it? I can do better than stop it. I can bury them. Keys clicked in the background. I'm pulling files now, financial records, communications, offshore accounts. If Marcus and Victor have been planning this, there's a paper trail. There's always a paper trail. We don't have time for investigations. They're coming at 6 a.m. Then we don't investigate. We attack. More typing. I'm conference calling the DA's office. I've got friends there who owe me favors. Big ones. Will they listen? They will when I tell them I can hand them Marcus Kane on a silver platter. He's been untouchable for years. This is the break they've been waiting for. Lena felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. What do we do? You? Nothing. Get back to your floor, act normal. I'll handle the rest. I'm supposed to be reassigned to ICU. Perfect. Go. Be visible. Make sure people see you following orders. When this breaks, you need plausible deniability. And Adrian? Rachel paused. When she spoke again, her voice had softened fractionally. Tell him I've got his back. I always have. The line went dead. Lena stood in the stairwell for another moment, letting her heartbeat slow. Then she climbed the stairs to ICU, where she spent the next 2 hours monitoring patients she didn't care about, watching the clock tick towards 6 a.m. Back in his room, Adrian worked through his exercises one final time. His body had recovered enough function to be dangerous, not full strength, not even close, but enough. He could stand without assistance now, could walk a few steps before his legs threatened to give out. His left hand still trembled, and his speech was rough, but his mind was clear. That was what mattered. He repositioned himself in the bed, let the ventilator breathe for him one last time. Outside his window, the sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn coming. The city waking up. The last dawn Marcus Kane would see as a free man. At 5:45, Dr. Reeves arrived. Adrian tracked his movements by sound, the soft footsteps, the rustle of a white coat, the click of a medical case being set on the counter. Good morning, Mr. Voss, Reeves said, his tone carrying that particular false cheerfulness doctors used around patients they thought couldn't hear them. Let's make this quick and painless. The words hit different when you knew what they really meant. Reeves moved around the room, checking equipment, preparing. Adrian heard the snap of latex gloves, the clink of glass vials, the tear of an alcohol swab packet. I want you to know this isn't personal, Reeves continued, talking to himself more than to Adrian. You've suffered enough. This is mercy, really. Better than lingering for months, years. Your family will understand eventually. Adrian's family, Sophia, his daughter, who'd chosen a different life but who he loved more than anything he'd ever built. Rage bloomed in his chest like fire. Reeves drew the medication into a syringe. Adrian heard the liquid being pulled from the vial, the slight squeak of the plunger. Morphine for the pain, and just a little something extra to help your heart find peace. You won't feel a thing. He approached the bed. Adrian felt the mattress shift as Reeves leaned over him, reaching for the IV port. Goodbye, Mr. Voss. I hope wherever you go, it's kinder than where you've been. The syringe touched the port, and Adrian's hand shot out and caught Reeves's wrist. The doctor's gasp was almost comical. His eyes went wide, mouth falling open as he stared at Adrian's very much awake, very much alive face. Morning, doctor, Adrian said, his voice gravel and spite. Let's talk about mercy. Reeves tried to pull away. Adrian's grip tightened, twisted. The syringe clattered to the floor. Mr. Voss, this isn't possible? Adrian sat up, still holding Reeves's wrist. Every muscle in his body screamed, but he didn't let go. Yeah, miracle of modern medicine. The door burst open. 2 police officers came through first, weapons drawn. Behind them, 3 federal agents in windbreakers. And behind them, Rachel Eng, looking like she'd teleported directly from her Manhattan office in full litigation armor, tailored suit, briefcase, an expression that could cut glass. Dr. Marcus Reeves, the lead agent said. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and medical fraud. You have the right to remain silent. But Reeves wasn't listening. He was staring at Adrian like he'd seen a ghost crawl out of its grave and ask for directions. How? He whispered. Adrian smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Trade secret. They cuffed Reeves, read him his rights, let him out. He went quietly, still in shock, still trying to process how the corpse had come back to life. Rachel crossed to the bed, set her briefcase down, looked Adrian over with the critical eye of someone who'd known him long enough to see through the performance. You look like hell. Feel worse. Can you walk? With help. Good. Because we need to move you. Now. Marcus and Victor don't know we've flipped the board yet. They think everything's going according to plan. Adrian nodded, let her help him to his feet. His legs shook but held. Barely. Where? Safe house. Federal protection until we can get you in front of a grand jury. I'm not testifying. Rachel shot him a look. You are if you want Marcus in prison instead of running your empire. I want Marcus in the ground. I know, but we're doing this my way. Legal, clean, airtight. She handed him a phone. A burner, by the look of it. Your organization's been in chaos since you went down. You need to send a message. Let people know the king's not dead. Adrian took the phone, dialed a number from memory. It rang twice before a rough voice answered. Yeah? Tommy. Silence. Then, Boss? That you? It's me. Holy shit, we heard. Everyone said. I know what everyone said. Tell them they were wrong. Tell them I'll be back in 48 hours. Tell them anyone who made moves thinking I was gone should start running now. Yes, sir. Boss, we got problems. The docks, the shipping routes. Marcus has been. I know. I'll handle Marcus. You handle the organization. Keep it tight until I get back. On it. Adrian ended the call, handed the phone back to Rachel. The nurse, he said. Lena Brooks. She needs protection too. Already arranged. Witness protection, new identity, full medical school scholarship once this settles. She asked for that? No. I'm offering it anyway. She saved your life. That's worth paying for. A federal agent appeared in the doorway. We need to go, now. We've got movement in the parking garage. Rachel grabbed her briefcase. Can you make it to the elevator? Adrian pushed off the bed, forced his legs to work. Each step felt like walking on broken glass, but he moved. He'd survived paralysis, survived betrayal, survived his own organization trying to erase him. He could survive a hallway. They made it to the service elevator, rode down in tense silence. The agent kept his hand on his weapon, eyes on the floor indicator. Where's Lena? Adrian asked. ICU, safe. We've got 2 agents with her. The elevator dinged. Doors opened to the parking garage. A black SUV waited, engine running. They moved toward it quickly, Rachel supporting Adrian's weight when his leg nearly gave out. They were 10 feet from the vehicle when Marcus Kane stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. He had a gun. Well, Marcus said, his voice carrying that same casual confidence it always had. This is unexpected. The federal agent drew his weapon. Drop it, now. Marcus didn't even look at him. His eyes were locked on Adrian, and in them was something that looked almost like respect. I have to admit, this is impressive. The paralysis was fake? All of it? All of it, Adrian said. And you just... What? Waited? Listened to us dig our own graves? Something like that. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. I taught you too well. You taught me exactly enough. Put the weapon down, the agent repeated, taking a step forward. Marcus's gun shifted, pointed at the agent's chest. I don't think so. You're not walking out of here, Rachel said. It's over, Marcus. We have recordings. We have Reeves. We have financial evidence of the embezzlement. You've got nowhere to go. Maybe not, but I'm not going to prison. His finger moved to the trigger. And if I'm going down, I'm taking someone with me. The garage erupted in noise. The agent fired. Marcus fired. Adrian threw himself sideways, taking Rachel with him. They hit the ground hard. Adrian's shoulders screamed, his half-recovered body protesting the impact. Gunshots echoed off concrete, impossibly loud in the enclosed space. When it stopped, Adrian looked up. Marcus was on the ground, bleeding from his chest. The agent was down too, gripping his leg, cursing. Rachel was already on her phone, calling for backup, for medical, for everything. Adrian crawled toward Marcus, His former lieutenant, his brother, the man who'd stood at his right hand for 20 years. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across the concrete. Marcus's eyes found him. He tried to smile, coughed blood instead. Should have stayed dead, he whispered. Probably. You would have done the same, in my position. Adrian thought about that. About ambition. About what he'd built, and what it cost. About the kind of men his empire created. Yeah, he said finally, I would have. Then we understand each other. We always did. That was the problem. Marcus's breathing went shallow, labored. Tell Sophia. Tell her I'm sorry. For what we planned. Tell her yourself, in hell. Marcus laughed one last time. Then he stopped breathing. Sirens filled the garage. Paramedics rushed in, went to work on the wounded agent. Police secured the scene. More federal agents appeared, weapons drawn, clearing corners. Rachel helped Adrian up, got him to the SUV. We need to get you checked out. I'm fine. You're bleeding. Adrian looked down. She was right. He'd torn something in his shoulder during the fall, blood seeping through his hospital gown. It's not mine, he lied. Bullshit. Get in the car. They drove him to a different hospital across the city, where doctors who didn't know his name stitched his shoulder and ran tests and told him he was lucky to be alive. He didn't feel lucky. He felt tired. In a private room, with federal agents outside his door, Adrian finally let himself stop. Stop performing. Stop fighting. Just stop. Rachel sat in the chair beside his bed, working on her laptop, building the case that would bury Victor Hale and everyone else involved in the conspiracy. You should sleep, she said without looking up. Can't. Why not? Because every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that bed, paralyzed, listening to them plan my death. Rachel stopped typing, looked at him. That's going to stay with you, what they did, what you had to do to survive it. I know. You're going to need to talk to someone, a professional. Adrian almost laughed. You think I'm going to therapy? I think you spent days locked in your own body while the people you trusted most planned to murder you. Yeah, I think you need therapy. She wasn't wrong. Adrian knew that. Knew the nightmares would come. Knew the sound of ventilators would probably haunt him for years. After, he said. After I fix the organization. After I make sure this doesn't happen again. And how do you plan to do that? Good question. How did you rebuild trust in an empire built on violence? How did you lead men who'd proven they'd kill you the moment you showed weakness? I don't know yet. Rachel closed her laptop. For what it's worth, I think you should walk away. Cash out, disappear, let someone else have the headache. You know I can't do that. Why not? Because if I walk away, Marcus wins. He wanted me gone. He wanted the organization for himself. If I let that happen, even dead, he gets what he wanted. So this is about pride. This is about making sure the next 20 years don't produce another Marcus Kane. Rachel studied him for a long moment. You're going to change things, really change them. I'm going to try. That's going to make enemies, different enemies, more dangerous than Marcus. I know. And you're still going to do it. I am. She opened her laptop again, started typing. Then we better make sure you survive long enough to see it through. Over the next 36 hours, the dominoes fell. Victor Hale was arrested in his office, surrounded by documents he'd been frantically shredding. He tried to lawyer up, tried to buy his way out, tried to cut a deal. Rachel shut down every avenue. By the end of day 2, he was in federal custody facing 20 years minimum. Dr. Reeves rolled on everyone. Named names, provided documentation, gave up account numbers and meeting locations. He was terrified of prison, terrified of what happened to doctors who killed patients. He sang like he'd been rehearsing. 3 board members went down with them. 2 accountants, a hospital administrator, a police lieutenant who'd been on Marcus's payroll for years. The empire that Marcus and Victor had tried to steal collapsed under its own corruption. And through it all, Adrian stayed in his safe house, recovering. Physical therapy twice a day. Meetings with Rachel to build the legal strategy. Phone calls to his organization, keeping it stable while he put himself back together. On the 3rd day, Lena came to visit. She looked different out of her scrubs. Jeans, a sweater, her hair down instead of tied back. Younger. The federal agent let her in, checked the room, stepped outside. "Hey," she said. "Hey." Awkward silence. They'd been through hell together, but now, in the quiet aftermath, neither knew quite what to say. Lena sat in the chair Rachel usually occupied. "How are you feeling?" "Better, stronger. The physical therapist says I'll make a full recovery." "That's good. I'm glad." More silence. "Rachel told me about the scholarship," Lena said finally. "Medical school. Full ride." "You earned it." "I just did my job." "You did more than that. You chose to help when you didn't have to, when it would have been safer to walk away." Lena looked at her hands. "My grandmother always said, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to stand around wondering if they should get involved. I remember." She smiled at that. Small, genuine. "I'm sorry about your grandmother," Adrian said. "She died when I was 16, but she's still, I don't know, still in my head, still telling me what's right. She sounds like she was something special." "She was." Lena met his eyes. "You know what she would have said about you?" "I'm afraid to ask." "She would have said everyone deserves a chance to be better than they were. Even people who've done terrible things." Adrian didn't know what to say to that. "I looked you up," Lena continued. "Really looked you up this time, all of it. The allegations, the arrests, the people who've accused you of things I can't even imagine. And I still think you deserve that chance. To be better." "Why?" She stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city. "Because in that hospital room, when you could have just let me hang, when you could have kept quiet and protected yourself, you warned me. You told me to run. You cared what happened to me." She turned back to him. "That matters. That says something. It says I'm selfish. You were useful. I needed you. Maybe. Or maybe you're more complicated than you want people to think." Adrian wanted to argue, but he was too tired, too honest maybe, in this moment. "What will you do now?" he asked instead. "Medical school. Research, probably. I want to work with patients who can't speak for themselves. Coma patients. Locked-in syndrome. People who—" She paused. "People who everyone thinks are gone, but might still be in there. Because of me. Because of you." She moved to the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I hope you do change things. I hope you make your organization into something that doesn't create more Marcus Canes. That's the plan." "Good." She opened the door. "Take care of yourself, Adrian." "You too, Lena." She left. The federal agent closed the door behind her, and Adrian sat alone in his safe house room, thinking about second chances and what they cost. The board meeting happened without him. Rachel attended in his place, armed with proxies and legal documents, and enough evidence to make it clear that anyone who challenged Adrian's control would regret it. She called him after. "You own 73% of the organization now. The rest either folded or fled. You're back." "What's the mood?" "Terrified," which is probably healthy. "And the operations?" "Tommy's been running them like you never left. Shipments are moving, money's flowing, everything's stable." "Good. Set up a meeting, all the underbosses, tomorrow." "You sure you're ready for that?" Adrian stood, testing his legs. They held. Solid now. Stronger every day. "I'm ready." The meeting took place in a warehouse on the south side, neutral territory. Adrian arrived early, walked in without security, without weapons, just him and the limp he couldn't quite hide yet. The underbosses stared like they were seeing a ghost. Tommy spoke first. "Boss, good to have you back." "Good to be back. We heard what happened. Marcus and Victor are gone, and we're not going to talk about them." Adrian looked around the room, met each man's eyes. "We're going to talk about the future." Confused glances, uncertain silence. "This organization has been running the same way for 30 years, Adrian continued. "Violence, fear, corruption. It worked. It made us rich. It made us powerful." He let that sit for a moment. "It also made us targets. It made men like Marcus think they could take what wasn't theirs. It made us vulnerable." "So what are you saying?" one of the underbosses asked. "Paulie ran the gambling operations. I'm saying we evolve. We go legitimate where we can. We cut out the operations that bring heat. We build something that lasts beyond the next war, the next betrayal, the next ambitious lieutenant. You want us to go soft? Polly again, skeptical. I want us to go smart. I want us to build an empire that doesn't eat itself every 5 years. And if people don't agree with that vision? Adrian smiled, cold, final. Then they can leave. Walk away clean. No hard feelings. He paused. But if they stay and undermine what we're building, if they try what Marcus tried. He didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. The message was clear. Tommy nodded slowly. I'm in. One by one, the others agreed. Some enthusiastic, some reluctant, but all of them smart enough to know that Adrian Voss had just survived the impossible. You didn't bet against a man who'd crawled out of his own grave. The meeting ended. The underbosses filed out. Adrian stayed behind, sitting in the empty warehouse, feeling the weight of what he'd just promised. Change, evolution, a better version of the empire he'd built. He didn't know if it was possible. Didn't know if men like him could really become men like that. But he was going to try. For Sophia. For Lena. For the part of himself that Marcus's betrayal had woken up. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. Grand jury's in 2 weeks. You ready? Adrian typed back. Ready. He stood, walked out of the warehouse into the evening light. The city sprawled before him. His city, his empire, his second chance. The Silent King was awake. And this time he wasn't going back to sleep. The transition wasn't smooth. Adrian had expected resistance, but he'd underestimated how deep the rot went. 2 days after the warehouse meeting, Tommy called him at 3 a.m. We got a problem. Adrian was already awake, staring at the ceiling, running scenarios. Sleep came in fragments now, interrupted by phantom sensations of paralysis, of voices plotting over his immobile body. Talk to me. Polly's crew hit one of Romano's shipments, unauthorized. They took 40 keys of product and torched the truck. Adrian sat up, ignoring the protest from his shoulder. When? 2 hours ago. Romano's people are already calling for blood. Where's Polly now? His club, drinking, acting like he didn't just start a war. Adrian dressed in silence, his mind already 3 moves ahead. Polly was testing him, seeing if the new vision had teeth, or if Adrian had gone soft after his near-death experience. Get everyone to the club, now. I want witnesses. Boss, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, just do it, Tommy. The drive across the city gave Adrian time to think. Polly had been with the organization for 12 years, came up through the gambling rackets, made his bones during the territory wars with the Irish. He was loyal but reckless, the kind of man who mistook violence for strength, the kind of man the old empire had rewarded. The club was a converted factory in the industrial district, all exposed brick and expensive liquor. Polly's pride and joy. Music pounded from inside, bass vibrating the windows. Adrian walked in alone, the music cut off. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every face turned toward him. Polly was at the bar, surrounded by his crew. He saw Adrian and grinned, raising his glass in salute. Boss, heard you were up and around, looking good for a dead man. Adrian crossed the floor, his limp barely noticeable now. He'd worked it down through sheer force of will and spite. We need to talk. Sure, boys, give us some space. Polly's crew hesitated, reading the temperature of the room, but they moved, creating a buffer zone around the bar. Drink? Polly poured 2 fingers of scotch without waiting for an answer. This is the good stuff. 25-year Macallan. Cost me $3,000 a bottle. Adrian didn't touch it. You hit Romano. Yeah, had it coming. He's been shorting us on the split for months. Did I authorize the hit? Polly's grin faltered. You said we were going legitimate. I figured the old rules still applied to the old operations. The old rules died with Marcus. I thought I made that clear. Come on, Adrian, you can't just flip a switch and expect everything to change. This is who we are. This is what we do. Not anymore. Polly set his glass down hard. Then what are we? Accountants? Businessmen in suits? You built this empire on blood. You can't just wash your hands and pretend it never happened. I'm not pretending anything. I'm adapting, evolving. You can come with me or you can leave. Leave? Polly laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean like Marcus left? Face down in a parking garage? The room went deadly quiet. Adrian kept his voice level, calm. Marcus tried to kill me. He tried to steal everything I built. That's not the same as walking away. Isn't it? You're telling me I can just, what, cash out, start a coffee shop, and you'll let me go? No hard feelings? Yes. Polly stared at him like he'd suggested something obscene. You're serious? Completely. And if I don't want to leave? If I want to stay and keep doing things the way we've always done them? Then you're fired. Fired. Polly repeated the word like it was foreign. You can't fire me. I earned my place. I bled for this organization, and I'm grateful for that. But the organization's changing. If you can't change with it, you're done. Polly's face went red. His hand moved toward his waist, where Adrian knew he kept a 9mm. Tommy appeared from the crowd, gun already drawn. Don't. 3 more of Adrian's men materialized, weapons out, pointed at Polly's crew. The tension stretched like wire about to snap. You gonna shoot me, boss? Polly asked quietly. In my own club? In front of everyone? No, Adrian said. I'm going to give you a choice. Walk out that door with a severance package and your life. Or stay and see what happens when you pull that gun. Polly's hand hovered over his weapon. Adrian could see him calculating, weighing pride against survival. Finally, slowly, Polly moved his hand away. How much? $500,000, cash. Tonight, you disappear. Mexico, Canada, I don't care. But you don't come back, you don't talk. You don't write a book or sell your story or try to leverage what you know. You just vanish. And my crew? Anyone who wants to leave gets the same deal, scaled to their years of service. Polly looked at his men. Some met his eyes. Others looked away. You're really doing this, tearing it all down. I'm building something better. Better? Polly grabbed his scotch, drained it. You know what I think? I think Marcus should have used more poison. He walked out. 4 of his crew followed. The rest stayed behind, choosing uncertainty over exile. Tommy holstered his weapon. That could have gone worse. It's not over. Romano still wants blood for his shipment. What are you going to do? Adrian picked up the scotch Polly had poured, studied the amber liquid in the dim light of the club. I'm going to give it to him. The meeting with Romano happened in a restaurant the Italian owned, a place that served real Neapolitan pizza and probably laundered money through the books. Romano himself was 70, old school, the kind of man who still wore pinky rings and believed in honor among thieves. He sat across from Adrian, flanked by 2 men who looked like they'd been carved from concrete. Adrian, I was sorry to hear about your condition. Glad to see you recovered. Thank you. Though I gotta say, I'm less glad about my missing shipment. A waiter brought espresso. Romano added 3 sugars to his, stirred slowly. 40 kilos. Good product. And my driver's in the hospital with 2nd-degree burns. I know, Polly acted without authorization. It was a mistake. Mistakes get corrected. They do. I'm offering full restitution. The product's value plus 20% for your trouble and medical expenses for your driver. Romano sipped his espresso. Money's good, but respect's better. Your man attacked mine. That requires an answer. Polly's gone. Out of the organization. If you want to find him and have that conversation, I won't stop you. You're giving me Polly? I'm giving you permission. What you do with it is your business. Romano leaned back, studied Adrian with eyes that had seen 50 years of this life. You've changed. The world's changed. Maybe. But our world? This world? He gestured around the restaurant. This world doesn't change. It just rotates the same players. Then maybe it's time we stopped playing the same game. And what game you playing now, Adrian? One where we don't burn each other's trucks over territory disputes. One where we can make money without constantly watching our backs. Sounds boring. Sounds profitable. Romano laughed at that, a deep rumbling sound. You always were smart. Smarter than Marcus, anyway. He thought with his pride. You think with your head. He extended his hand. I'll take your offer. The money and Polly. We're square. They shook. Adrian felt the weight of it. Another piece falling into place, another fire contained before it spread. But as he left the restaurant, he knew Romano was right about one thing. The world didn't change easily. And the game he was trying to play? Most people didn't know the rules yet. The grand jury hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in federal court downtown. Rachel had prepared him extensively: what to say, what not to say, how to present himself as a victim rather than a criminal who'd orchestrated his own fake coma. You were incapacitated, she'd coached him. You couldn't consent to what was happening to you. That makes you a victim of a conspiracy, not a participant in fraud. Even though I planned the whole thing, they don't need to know that part. Focus on Marcus and Victor. Focus on the murder plot. Everything else is noise. The morning of the hearing, Adrian dressed carefully. Conservative suit, simple tie, no jewelry. He looked like a businessman, not a mob boss, which was the point. Lena was testifying too. He saw her in the hallway outside the courtroom talking to a victim's advocate. She looked nervous, kept twisting a ring on her finger. He approached carefully. "You okay?" She startled, then relaxed when she recognized him. "Yeah, this is a lot." "You'll do fine. Just tell the truth." "The truth?" She laughed weakly. "Which parts of it?" "The parts where they tried to kill me and you stopped it. Everything else is details." The advocate called her name. Time to go in. "Hey," Adrian said. "Thank you for all of it." Lena nodded, squared her shoulders, walked into the courtroom. Adrian waited his turn, listening to muffled voices through the door. He couldn't hear specifics, but he could track the rhythm, questions and answers, the formal dance of legal proceedings. When they called him, he entered to find 12 jurors staring at him with varying degrees of curiosity and judgment. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Patterson, stood at the podium with a stack of documents. "Mr. Voss, thank you for being here today." "Of course. I want to start by asking about your relationship with Marcus Kane. How long had you known him?" 20 years. He was my right hand, my most trusted advisor." "And Victor Hale?" 15 years. Legal counsel. He handled all my business affairs." Patterson pulled out a transcript. "I'm going to read you a portion of a conversation that was recorded in your hospital room. Do you remember this conversation?" "I do." She read Marcus's words. The casual discussion of murder, the timeline, the planned method. Her voice was neutral, but the content was damning. "And you heard all of this while you were conscious but unable to move?" "Yes." "What did you think when you heard it?" Adrian took his time answering. Let the silence build. "I thought about my daughter, about how they were planning to kill her too if she asked questions. I thought about everyone I'd trusted, everyone I'd built my life around, and how it had all been hollow. A performance." "You felt betrayed." "I felt like an idiot for not seeing it coming." One of the jurors nodded slightly, a woman in her 50s wearing glasses. Patterson continued through the evidence. Financial records showing embezzlement, communications between Marcus and Victor, the falsified medical records Dr. Reeves had prepared. Every piece built the case higher, stronger. When she finished, the defense attorney stood. Young guy, probably appointed, definitely overmatched. "Mr. Voss, you run how shall I put this, a controversial business empire." "I run several businesses, yes. Businesses that have been investigated for racketeering, money laundering, and organized crime." Rachel stood. "Objection. Mr. Voss isn't on trial here. The conspiracy to murder him is." "Sustained," the judge said. "Move on, counselor." The defense attorney shuffled his notes. "Were you actually paralyzed, Mr. Voss, or was this some kind of elaborate setup?" Adrian had prepared for this. Rachel had war-gamed every possible question. "I had a medical emergency, a stroke. The paralysis was real. What I learned later was that my recovery was faster than expected." Not a lie, not quite the truth, but enough to slide past scrutiny. "And you just happened to recover right when these men were planning to kill you?" "I recovered when a nurse gave me medication that my doctors had overlooked. Ms. Brooks saved my life twice, once by helping me physically, once by discovering the plot." The defense attorney tried a few more angles, but Rachel had built the story too well. By the time Adrian stepped down, the narrative was set. Victim, survivor. Not a criminal mastermind who'd faked his own condition. The grand jury deliberated for 40 minutes. When they came back, they'd indicted Victor Hale on conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, deceit, and embezzlement. Marcus was beyond their reach, but his name would be attached to every headline, every news story. His legacy would be traitor, not trusted lieutenant. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Rachel had prepared a statement, but Adrian ignored it. "Mr. Voss, how does it feel to know your own people tried to kill you? Were you targeted because of your criminal activities? Is it true Marcus Kane was like a brother to you?" Adrian stopped at the microphone, looked directly at the cameras. "Marcus Kane and Victor Hale betrayed everything I built. They proved that loyalty without accountability is just another word for opportunity. I'm rebuilding my organization from the ground up. Anyone who thinks they can do what Marcus did should learn from his mistake." "What mistake was that?" a reporter called out. Adrian smiled, underestimating how hard it is to kill a king. He walked away to the sound of shutters clicking and shouted questions. Rachel caught up with him at the car. "That wasn't the statement we prepared." "I know. You just threatened anyone who might come after you. On camera, in front of federal prosecutors." "Good. Let them hear it. Let everyone hear it." She climbed into the car beside him, closed the door against the chaos outside. "You're playing a dangerous game, Adrian. Only game I know how to play. The old game or the new one." He thought about that. About Paulie walking away with his severance. About Romano accepting restitution instead of war. About standing in a federal courtroom and telling something close to the truth. Both, for now. The reorganization took 6 months. Adrian shut down 3 operations entirely. The drug distribution network, the illegal gambling dens, the protection rackets that had funded his rise. He liquidated assets, paid out settlements, cut deals with prosecutors to avoid charges. Some of his people left, took their money and disappeared into retirement or rival organizations. Others stayed, willing to adapt or at least willing to wait and see what adaptation looked like. Tommy became his operational director. Not second in command, Adrian had learned that lesson, but a trusted manager who understood both the old world and the new one they were trying to build. They invested in legitimate businesses, real estate development, tech startups, a consulting firm that helped companies navigate regulatory environments. The irony of using his connections to help people avoid the kind of corruption he'd once profited from wasn't lost on Adrian. The money was cleaner, slower, but sustainable. Not everyone was happy about it. 3 months in, someone left a dead rat on Adrian's doorstep with a note. "This is what happens to rats." 4 months in, a bomb was found in his car. Amateur work, defused by his security team before it could detonate. 5 months in, a former associate named Dmitri called asking for a meeting. They met in a park, neutral ground. Dmitri had run the Eastern Territory smuggling operations, made millions moving contraband across state lines. The shutdown had cost him everything. "You destroyed what we built," Dmitri said, feeding pigeons like they were having a friendly conversation. "I destroyed what was destroying us." "You got soft." Marcus was right about that, at least. Marcus is dead. Maybe he had the right idea, just the wrong execution. Adrian watched a jogger pass, earbuds in, oblivious to the 2 men casually discussing murder. "You threatening me, Dmitri?" "I'm saying what everyone's thinking. You can't change the nature of a thing, Adrian. A wolf is a wolf. You can put it in sheep's clothing, but eventually it's going to bite." "Then it's a good thing I'm not a wolf anymore." Dmitri laughed. "You think you can just decide that? You think you can wake up one day and be different?" "I think I can try." "And when trying isn't enough? When someone comes for you who doesn't care about your new rules? What then?" "Then I'll handle it." "With what? Lawyers? Paperwork?" Dmitri stood, brushed breadcrumbs from his coat. "You're going to get yourself killed, Adrian, and this time you won't wake up." He walked away, leaving Adrian alone with the pigeons and the joggers and the weight of knowing Dmitri was probably right. That night, Adrian called Sophia. His daughter answered on the 4th ring, her voice cautious. "Dad?" "Hey, sweetheart. Is everything okay? You never call this late?" It was 9 p.m. For most people, early evening. For Sophia, who kept hospital hours, probably the middle of her wind-down routine. "I wanted to check in, see how you're doing." "I'm fine. Busy. I'm on the transplant team now. We did a kidney this morning, liver scheduled for tomorrow." Pride swelled in his chest. His daughter, saving lives while he'd spent 30 years taking them. "That's incredible, Sophia." "Yeah, it's good work. Important." She paused. "I heard about the trial, about Marcus and Victor." "Yeah. Are you safe? The question hit harder than it should have. When was the last time someone had asked him that? When was the last time anyone had cared about his safety rather than his usefulness? I'm safe. I've got good people around me. Dad, I know we don't talk about what you do, but after what happened, after they tried to... Her voice caught. I need you to be careful. I am. I'm changing things, Sophia. The organization, the way we operate. I'm trying to build something you wouldn't be ashamed of. Silence on the line. Then, I'm not ashamed of you. You should be. Maybe. But you're still my father, and I don't want to lose you. Adrian felt something crack in his chest. Not break, just shift. A fault line he'd been ignoring for years suddenly too obvious to deny. You won't, I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. Then I'll keep this one. They talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important. Her apartment, her colleagues, a conference in Boston she was considering. Normal things, father-daughter things. When they hung up, Adrian sat in his study and stared at the city lights spreading out below his window. Somewhere out there, Dmitri was probably planning his next move. Somewhere, other enemies were circling, waiting for weakness. But for the first time in 30 years, Adrian had something worth protecting beyond money and power. He had a reason to be better. The 6th month brought the hardest test. A rival organization, the Koreans that Victor had mentioned, made a move on the waterfront territories. They came in hard. 3 warehouses hit in one night, 2 of Adrian's crews ambushed, 1 man dead. Tommy called an emergency meeting. The underbosses gathered, everyone angry, everyone ready for war. We hit them back, one said. Show them we're not weak. Burn their operations, another agreed. Make an example. Adrian listened to them argue, heard the bloodlust rising. This was the moment. This was where he either became what he used to be or proved the change was real. No, he said quietly. The room went silent. No, Tommy repeated. Boss, they killed one of ours. If we don't respond, we respond. Just not with violence. Then how? Adrian pulled out his phone, made a call. It rang twice before a smooth voice answered. Mr. Voss, unexpected pleasure. Park Min-jun, leader of the Korean syndicate. Adrian had done business with him years ago, back when territories were negotiated with handshakes and implied threats. We need to talk, Adrian said. About the unfortunate incidents at the waterfront? I assumed you'd be calling for war, not conversation. I'm calling for a solution. Solutions require compromise. Are you prepared to compromise? Are you prepared to stop killing my people? Park laughed. Direct. I appreciate that. Meet me tomorrow, noon. The tea house on 7th. The line went dead. Tommy stared at him. You're negotiating after they killed Danny? I'm preventing more people from dying. They'll see it as weakness. Let them. I'd rather be weak and alive than strong and starting a war that costs us everything we've built. The underbosses shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the Adrian Voss they knew. That Adrian would have already mobilized soldiers, planned retaliatory strikes, escalated until the streets ran red. Trust me, Adrian said. One more time. Trust me. The next day he met Park at the tea house alone. Park was younger than Adrian expected. Early 40s, wearing an expensive suit and an expression of permanent amusement. You came without security, Park observed. You asked for a conversation, not a confrontation. True, Park poured tea with practiced precision. I respect that. Shows confidence. Or stupidity. The line between the two is often blurry. Adrian accepted the tea, sipped it. Green tea. Good quality. Why the waterfront? He asked. Because you abandoned it. You shut down your smuggling operations, pulled out your crews. Nature abhors a vacuum. So you thought you'd fill it. Wouldn't you have done the same? Fair point. The old Adrian would have absolutely seized abandoned territory. I'm reorganizing, Adrian said. Not abandoning. Those warehouses were scheduled for legitimate redevelopment. Condos, retail space, legal ventures. Park raised an eyebrow. The great Adrian Voss gone legitimate. I heard the rumors but didn't quite believe them. Believe them. And if I don't want condos and retail space in my new territory, then we find another solution. I'll buy you out. Fair market value for whatever operations you've established. You relocate to areas I'm actually abandoning. I'll provide a list. Everyone wins. Except you pay me for invading your territory and killing your man. Except I avoid a war that would cost both of us more than money. Park studied him over the rim of his teacup. This new approach of yours, is it weakness or wisdom? Probably both. An honest answer. I like that. Park set down his cup. Here's my counteroffer. I keep the waterfront. You get a 15% stake in my operations there. We share the development costs and the profits, and he leaned forward. You provide introductions to your new legitimate business partners. Your lawyers, your politicians, your clean money people. Adrian considered it. Sharing territory. Sharing profits. It was against every instinct he'd developed over 30 years. It was also smart. 20%, he countered. 17. Done. They shook hands. No lawyers, no contracts. Just the old way of doing business applied to a new framework. You've changed, Park said. I'm not sure if I admire it or if I think you've lost your edge. Ask me in a year. I'll probably have a better answer myself. Walking back to his car, Adrian called Tommy. It's handled. We're partnering with the Koreans on the waterfront development. Partnering? Boss, they killed... I know. And if we'd gone to war, more people would have died. This way, we make money. We expand our legitimate operations, and we don't spend the next 6 months watching our backs. Tommy was quiet for a long moment. You really are changing everything, aren't you? I'm trying. For what it's worth, I think it's working. Scared the hell out of everyone, but it's working. That night, Adrian sat in his study and wrote down the names of everyone who died because of his decisions over the years. Not the enemies. Not the rival gangsters or the informants or the people who'd chosen the life. The civilians. The bystanders. The family members caught in crossfire. It took 3 hours and filled 4 pages. Danny's name went at the bottom. The last one. If Adrian had anything to say about it. He folded the pages, locked them in his desk drawer. A reminder. A promise. The empire was changing. He was changing. And everyone who couldn't accept that had a choice. Adapt or walk away. But the killing was done. The list in his desk drawer haunted him more than he'd expected. Adrian found himself opening it at odd hours, reading through the names like some kind of penance. Margaret Chen, caught in crossfire during a territorial dispute in 2019. David Orozco, collateral damage from a car bombing meant for someone else. A kid named Marcus, different Marcus, wrong place, wrong time. Who'd been 16 when a stray bullet found him outside a convenience store Adrian's people had been using as a front. 16. The same age Sophia had been when she'd stopped looking him in the eye at family dinners. A week after the Korean deal, Rachel showed up at his office unannounced. She walked past his assistant without breaking stride, closed the door behind her, and dropped a folder on his desk. Victor Hale took a plea deal. Adrian opened the folder. Legal documents, dense with terminology, but the core was clear enough. 15 years with possibility of parole in 8. Full cooperation with ongoing investigations into organized crime operations. He's testifying against you. He's trying to. The prosecutor's not interested. They got what they wanted. Marcus is dead. Victor's locked up. The conspiracy case is closed. You were the victim, remember? They're not going to suddenly flip the narrative. Adrian scanned the testimony transcripts. Victor had given them everything. Financial records, operational details, names and dates going back a decade. It was a roadmap of the empire Adrian had built, annotated with Victor's particular brand of clinical precision. This could still bury me. It could if you were still running those operations. But you're not. Everything he's describing, it's past tense. You've already dismantled it. She had a point. The drug networks were gone. The illegal gambling operations were shuttered. The protection rackets had been quietly dissolved with exit payments to everyone involved. He mentioned Sophia, Adrian said, pointing to a highlighted section. Rachel's expression tightened. He claims you used her medical school tuition as a way to launder money through educational charities. It's bullshit. I've got receipts proving every dollar came from legitimate sources. Legitimate now or legitimate then? Does it matter? It did. Adrian knew it did. The money had come from his legitimate businesses, sure, but those businesses had been seeded with capital from decidedly illegitimate sources. Money laundering wasn't just about the final transaction. It was about the whole chain. Will it stick? Not if I do my job. Which I will. Rachel sat down, crossed her legs. But I need you to stay clean, completely clean, no backsliding, no gray areas. Every business decision, every financial move, every handshake deal, it all has to be above board from here on out. I know. Do you? Because I've seen this before, Adrian. Someone tries to go legitimate, runs into a cash flow problem or a difficult negotiation, decides to solve it the old way just this once. And just this once becomes a pattern. That's not going to happen. You sound very certain for someone who spent 30 years doing the opposite. Adrian closed the folder, pushed it back across the desk. You know what I thought about lying in that hospital bed? When I couldn't move, couldn't speak, when all I could do was listen to Marcus plan my murder? What? I thought about Sophia, about the last real conversation we'd had. She was 23, just finished med school, and she told me she was ashamed to tell people who her father was. Said her colleagues would Google me and find news articles about investigations and indictments. Said she'd started using her mother's maiden name on professional documents. Rachel stayed quiet. I told her she was being dramatic, that I'd never been convicted of anything, that what I did was business, no different than what anyone else did, just more honest about it. What did she say? She said the only difference between me and a murderer was that I paid someone else to pull the trigger. Adrian met Rachel's eyes. She was right. That's quite an admission. It's the truth. And yeah, I'm certain I won't backslide. Because every time I think about taking the easy way, the old way, I'm going to remember how it felt to hear Marcus talk about killing my daughter like it was a line item in a budget. Rachel studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I believe you. But belief only goes so far. I'm putting monitoring systems in place, financial audits every quarter, independent oversight on all major decisions. You're going to have accountability whether you like it or not. I like it fine. Good. Because Victor's testimony just made you a person of interest to every law enforcement agency in the state. They're going to be watching, waiting for you to slip up. You can't give them anything. After Rachel left, Adrian sat alone in his office and thought about accountability. It was a word that had never meant much to him before. In his world, accountability had been about violence. You were accountable to whoever could hurt you most. It made loyalty transactional, temporary. But real accountability, the kind Rachel was talking about, that was different. That was choosing to be answerable to something beyond fear. He picked up his phone, scrolled through contacts, found a number he hadn't called in 8 years. Father Michael Brennan answered on the third ring. This is Father Brennan. Father, this is Adrian Voss. Silence. Then, Adrian, it's been a while. I know, I'm sorry about that. Don't apologize to me, I'm not the one keeping score. Father Brennan had been Sophia's priest when she was growing up, had baptized her, given her first communion, been a steady presence through her mother's death. He'd tried to counsel Adrian too, back when Adrian still pretended to care about redemption. I need advice, Adrian said. That's new. I'm trying to change. Actually change, not just talk about it. But I don't know if it's possible. If someone like me can actually become someone different. Father Brennan was quiet for a moment. Adrian heard traffic in the background. The priest was probably walking somewhere, doing the endless rounds of parish work. Do you remember the story of Paul? Father Brennan asked finally. The conversion on the road to Damascus. That's the famous part. But do you remember what happened after? He didn't just wake up different. He spent years learning, struggling, making mistakes. The early Christians didn't trust him. They thought it was a trick. He had to prove himself over and over. How long did it take? The rest of his life? Change isn't an event, Adrian. It's a practice. You don't become a different person overnight. You make different choices day after day until those choices become who you are. And if I mess up, then you try again. The point isn't perfection, it's direction. Adrian thought about that. Direction, not perfection. Thank you, Father. Come see me sometime, not for advice, just to talk. I will. He hung up feeling slightly less lost. The next challenge came from an unexpected direction. 2 weeks later, Tommy knocked on Adrian's office door looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. We got a situation. Talk to me. You remember Dmitri? The guy who ran the Eastern Territory smuggling? The one who left the dead rat on my doorstep? That's him. He's putting together a crew, former associates, people who left when you restructured. Word is he's planning something big. Adrian felt that old familiar tension, the combat readiness that came from years of watching his back. How big? Coordinated hits on your legitimate businesses. Nothing violent, just disruption, vandalism, cyber attacks, harassment of your business partners. He wants to prove you've gone soft, that the empire's vulnerable. When? Soon. Maybe days. Adrian stood, walked to his window. The city sprawled below, indifferent to the small wars being fought in its shadows. What do you recommend? Tommy blinked. You're asking me? You're my operational director. I'm asking for your assessment. Okay. Tommy gathered himself. Old way? We'd find Dmitri, send a message he couldn't ignore, make an example. New way? I don't know. Legal action? But that's slow, and he's not doing anything technically illegal yet. What if we just talked to him? Talked? Got ahead of it? Found out what he actually wants. He wants you gone, boss. He's made that pretty clear. Maybe. Or maybe he wants what everyone wants. Security, respect, a future that doesn't involve constantly looking over his shoulder. Tommy looked skeptical, but he didn't argue. That was growth. A few months ago, he would have pushed for the violent solution. I'll reach out, see if he's willing to meet. Dmitri agreed to a meeting, surprisingly. They arranged it at a boxing gym in the South End, neutral territory, public enough to prevent anything stupid. Adrian arrived alone again. It was becoming his signature move, showing up without security, without backup, trusting that most people didn't actually want violence if given an alternative. Dmitri was hitting the heavy bag when Adrian walked in, each punch landing with controlled fury. He was older than Adrian remembered, gray at the temples, but still solid. Voss, he said, not stopping his combination. Gutsy, coming here alone. I'm not here to fight. No? Dmitri landed a final punch, turned to face him. Then what are you here for? To understand what you want. I want my life back. The one you took when you decided to play saint. I didn't take anything. I offered you a buyout. You chose not to take it. Because it was insulting. 20 years I worked for you. 20 years of risk, of putting my neck out. And you offer me what? A retirement package like I'm some middle manager? Adrian could see it now, the wound beneath the anger. It wasn't just about money. It was about being discarded, made irrelevant. You're right, Adrian said. The offer was inadequate. Dmitri stopped, surprised. What? You gave 20 years. You earned more than a payout and a goodbye. I should have recognized that. So what are you going to do about it? What do you want to do, genuinely? If you could design your future right now, what would it look like? Dmitri grabbed a towel, wiped his face. Thinking. I want to still matter. I want to use what I know. I'm good at logistics, at moving things efficiently. I don't want to go back to moving contraband. What if you could do the same thing legitimately? How? Adrian pulled out his phone, pulled up a business plan his consulting team had put together. I'm acquiring a logistics company. Freight, shipping, supply chain management. Completely legal, but it needs someone who understands how to move product quickly, efficiently, under tight timelines. He showed Dmitri the documents. The older man scrolled through, his expression shifting from suspicion to interest. This is real? Not some make-work job to keep me quiet? It's real. And it's a challenge. The company's struggling, needs a turnaround, but someone with your skills could make it profitable inside a year. What's the catch? No catch. Fair salary, benefits, equity stake if you hit performance targets. You'd be employee number 3, report directly to me. And my crew? The guys I've been organizing. Anyone who wants a legitimate job, I'll find them one. Anyone who wants a buyout, they'll get a fair one. Dmitri set the phone down, studied Adrian's face. You're serious about this? The whole Reformation thing? Completely. Why? Because Marcus tried to kill me and it made me realize the empire I built was designed to eat itself. I can either keep feeding it until it eats me, or I can build something different. And you think what? That making us all into legitimate businessmen is going to fix 30 years of, he gestured vaguely, All of it? No. But it's better than the alternative. Dmitri laughed, a short, bitter sound. You know what the worst part is? You're right. I'm 53 years old. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. I'm tired of burner phones and encrypted messages and wondering if every meeting is a setup. He picked up the phone again, scrolled through the business plan. This salary is lower than what I was making. The equity makes up for it. If you turn the company profitable, you'll make more in 5 years than you did in 20. If. You've never struck me as someone who's afraid of a challenge. I'm not, but I'm also not naive. Your legitimate businesses still have to compete with people who don't play by the rules. How do you do that without— He made a gesture that Adrian understood. Without the old tactics. We be better, smarter, more efficient. We provide actual value instead of just controlling markets through intimidation. That's idealistic. Probably. But what's the alternative? Keep doing what we've been doing until someone else does to us what I did to Marcus? Dmitri was quiet for a long moment. I'll need to bring in my own people. For oversight. Make sure this isn't some elaborate setup. Bring whoever you want. Have your lawyers review everything. I want you to be comfortable. You've changed, Dmitri said, echoing what everyone seemed to say lately. I'm still not sure if it's real or if you're playing some long game I don't understand. Only one way to find out. They shook hands. It felt fragile, this peace, but it held. Walking out of the gym, Adrian got a call from Sophia. Hey, sweetie. Dad, are you busy? Something in her voice made him stop walking. Never too busy for you. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, exactly. There's someone I want you to meet. Someone? His name is David. We've been seeing each other for about 6 months. It's serious. I wanted to introduce you. Adrian felt something shift in his chest. His daughter, dating someone seriously enough to introduce him. I'd love to meet him. Really? You're not going to, I don't know, run a background check or have him followed or something? Should I? Dad, I'm kidding, mostly. When? How about dinner? Saturday? There's a place near me that's quiet. Saturday works. After they hung up, Adrian stood on the sidewalk and realized he was smiling. When was the last time he'd smiled about something that wasn't a successful negotiation or a strategic win? Saturday came faster than he expected. The restaurant Sophia chose was small, intimate, the kind of place that served 7-course tasting menus and had waiters who could describe the provenance of every ingredient. David turned out to be a surgeon, cardiac. Same hospital as Sophia, which was how they'd met. He was nervous, which Adrian appreciated, showed the man understood the gravity of the situation. Mr. Voss, it's an honor to meet you. They shook hands. David had a firm grip, confident but not aggressive. Call me Adrian, and the honor's mutual. Anyone who makes my daughter happy has my respect. Sophia shot him a look that said she was evaluating his sincerity. He tried to project as much as he could. Dinner conversation flowed easier than Adrian expected. David was smart, articulate, passionate about his work in ways that reminded Adrian of Sophia. They talked about a new surgical technique, a difficult case, hospital politics. Adrian mostly listened, watching his daughter light up when she talked about her work, seeing the way David looked at her, like she was the most fascinating person in the room. So, Adrian, David said during the 4th course, Sophia mentioned you're restructuring your business operations, moving into more traditional markets. Here it was. The moment David would either reveal he knew exactly who Adrian was or would prove he was oblivious. That's right, it's been challenging, but necessary. I can imagine. My father ran a small business, manufacturing. When the market shifted, he had to completely reinvent what they produced. Nearly bankrupted him, but he survived. What did he make? Auto parts. Then when the industry moved overseas, he switched to specialty medical equipment. Lower volume, higher margins, better customers. Sounds like a smart man. He was. Died 5 years ago. Heart attack. David's expression flickered with old grief. I sometimes think if I'd been faster in my training, if I'd specialized earlier, maybe I could have— He stopped himself. Sorry, you probably don't want to hear about that. I do, Adrian said. And he meant it. This man understood loss, understood the weight of what-ifs and missed chances. Sophia reached across the table, squeezed David's hand. After dinner, walking to their cars, Sophia pulled Adrian aside. So, what do you think? I think he's good for you. Yeah? Yeah. He looks at you the way your mother used to look at me before I became someone she couldn't recognize. Before things got complicated. Sophia's eyes got suspiciously bright. That means a lot. Your approval. I wasn't sure if I'd be okay with you dating someone. Sophia, I want you to be happy. That's all I've ever wanted. That's not all you've wanted, Dad. Fair point. It's what I want now for you. A good life, a safe life, the kind I couldn't give you growing up. She hugged him then, fierce and quick. I love you, Dad. Even when I was ashamed, even when I used Mom's name instead of yours, I still loved you. I know, sweetie. I love you too. David appeared, tactfully having given them space. Take care of her, Adrian said. I will. I promise. Driving home, Adrian thought about promises, about the ones he'd broken and the ones he was trying to keep, about second chances and whether people like him deserved them. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. Victor's appeal was denied. He's going to serve the full 15. Adrian typed back, good. Then, after a moment, he added, make sure he has access to educational programs. If he wants to make something of himself when he gets out, we shouldn't stop him. Rachel's response came quickly. You're getting soft, maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of revenge. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Probably not, but I'm trying anyway. 3 weeks after the dinner with Sophia, Tommy walked into Adrian's office with news. The logistics company, Dimitri turned it profitable. Adrian looked up from the contracts he'd been reviewing. Already? He renegotiated all the existing contracts, brought in new clients, streamlined the routing systems. We're up 18% from last quarter. 18% in 3 weeks? Guy's a natural. Who knew all that experience moving illegal cargo would translate so well to legitimate freight? Adrian laughed. Actually laughed. Send him a bonus, and let's look at expanding. If he can do that with one company, imagine what he could do with a division. After Tommy left, Adrian opened his desk drawer, took out the list of names. He read through them again, let the weight of each one settle. Then he took out a pen and wrote at the bottom, I can't bring you back. I can't undo the choices that led to your deaths. But I can make sure the empire that killed you doesn't kill anyone else. That's my promise. That's my penance. He folded the pages, put them back in the drawer. Outside his window, the city moved through its evening rhythm. Lights coming on, people heading home. Normal lives being lived by people who'd never know how close they'd come to being collateral damage in someone else's war. Adrian's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Voss, this is Lena Brooks. He sat up straighter. Lena, is everything okay? Yes. Sorry, I should have started with that. Everything's fine. I wanted to let you know I got accepted to medical school, full scholarship like Rachel promised. Pride bloomed in his chest. That's incredible. Congratulations. Thank you. And thank you for everything. I know I just did my job, but you made sure I had a future after. Not everyone would have done that. You saved my life, Lena, twice. It was the least I could do. Still, I wanted you to know it mattered. What you did, how you handled it. She paused. I also wanted to say, I've been following the news about your business reorganization, about going legitimate. Yeah? I think it's brave, really brave. Changing who you are is harder than people think. You have experience with that? Sort of. I grew up in a family that, let's just say they had different expectations for me. Wanted me to stay small, stay quiet, not ask for too much. Walking away from that, choosing my own path, it was the hardest thing I ever did. But you did it. I did, and you're doing it too, just on a bigger scale. They talked for another few minutes, her excited about classes starting in the fall, him asking about her plans. When they hung up, Adrian felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate hope of someone trying to escape consequences. Real hope. The kind that came from building something instead of destroying it. His empire was changing. He was changing. And for the first time since Marcus had stood over his hospital bed planning his murder, Adrian believed he might actually survive it, not just survive, maybe even deserve to. The hope lasted exactly 3 months before reality tested it. Adrian was in a board meeting for one of his real estate ventures when Tommy interrupted, which meant something was seriously wrong. Tommy knew better than to disturb him during legitimate business unless the building was on fire. "We need to talk, now." Adrian excused himself, followed Tommy into the hallway. "Romano's dead." The words hit like cold water. "When?"
2 hours ago. Shot outside his restaurant. 3 bullets, close range. Professional. Adrian's mind raced through implications. Romano had been his bridge to the Italian families. The proof that going legitimate didn't mean going soft. They'd built a profitable partnership on the waterfront development, showed that former rivals could cooperate. Who? No idea yet. Could be internal, someone in his organization making a move. Could be external, could be... Tommy hesitated.
Could be someone sending me a message. Yeah. They walked to Adrian's office. He closed the door, pulled out his phone, started making calls. First to Park Min-jun. "You heard?" Park answered without preamble. "Just now. Was it you?" "No, and before you ask, I've already checked with my people. Nobody made a move without authorization." "Then who benefits?" "Anyone who wants to destabilize the waterfront partnership. Anyone who thinks we've gotten too comfortable." Park paused. "Anyone who wants to prove your new way doesn't work." Adrian ended the call, stared out of his window at the city. The same view he'd looked at after Marcus's betrayal, after Dimitri's threats, after every crisis that had tested his transformation. "What do we do?" Tommy asked. "We find out who did it, quietly, carefully. No retaliation until we know for sure. And if it was someone from our old world, someone testing whether you've really changed, then we show them change doesn't mean weak." The investigation took 4 days. Adrian pulled in favors from his remaining contacts in law enforcement, the ones who'd taken his money for years and now owed him for helping them close the Marcus Kane case. He used his legitimate business connections, called in private investigators, tracked financial movements and communication patterns. The answer, when it came, was worse than he'd feared. Romano's nephew, Nico. 26 years old, ambitious, resentful of his uncle's partnership with Adrian. He'd seen the legitimate business ventures as surrender, saw his uncle's cooperation with a former rival as weakness. He thought killing Romano would restart the old wars, Rachel explained, laying out the evidence in Adrian's office. Thought the Italians would blame you or the Koreans, that everything would collapse back into territory fights and violence. Instead, he just murdered his own uncle. Family business at its finest. Rachel's tone was bitter. The prosecutors have enough to charge him. They're moving on it tonight. Does Nico know we found him? Not yet. Why? Adrian stood, grabbed his coat. Because someone needs to explain to him what he actually did. Rachel caught his arm. Adrian, no. Let the police handle this. I'm not going to hurt him. I'm going to talk to him. That's what worries me. But Adrian went anyway, because some conversations couldn't be delegated. He found Nico in a bar on the east side, celebrating with friends who had no idea they were drinking with a dead man walking. Adrian slid into the booth across from him, ignored the confused looks from Nico's crew. We need to talk. Nico's face went pale. He recognized Adrian, understood immediately that his time was up. Outside, Adrian said quietly. Now, or I make this ugly in front of your friends. They walked into the alley behind the bar. Nico's hand moved toward his waistband, probably carrying, probably stupid enough to think drawing would help. Don't, Adrian said. That's not how this goes. You gonna kill me? Like you killed Marcus? Marcus killed himself the moment he decided betrayal was easier than loyalty. But no, I'm not going to kill you. The police are on their way. You've got about 10 minutes. Nico laughed, nervous and high-pitched. So what? You're turning me in? That's your play? My play is explaining what you actually did. You think you killed your uncle to save your family's pride? To restart the old wars? To prove I've gone soft? Something like that. Adrian stepped closer, let Nico see the coldness in his eyes. The part of him that hadn't changed would never change. You killed the one man holding your family together. Romano was transitioning the organization into legitimate businesses. Real estate, construction, consulting. He was setting you all up with clean money, sustainable income. And you murdered him because you thought violence was strength. It is strength. It's the only thing people respect. Is it? Then why are you shaking right now? Nico's hands were trembling. Fear or adrenaline, didn't matter which. I'm shaking because I know you're going to kill me. You have to. Otherwise, you look weak. No, Adrian said. I'm letting the police arrest you because that's how the world actually works now. You break the law. You face consequences. Not from me. From the system you thought you could outsmart. Nobody's going to believe you didn't order this. They're going to think you had Romano killed to consolidate power. Let them think what they want. The evidence says otherwise. The financial records show we were partners. The witnesses saw you arguing with your uncle about his decisions. The security footage from the restaurant shows you leaving 5 minutes before the shooting. You did this alone, and you did it stupidly. Sirens echoed in the distance, getting closer. Your family's going to fall apart now, Adrian continued. Without Romano's leadership, without the legitimate businesses he built, they'll collapse back into the old patterns. Territory fights, investigations. Eventually, prison or graves. That's what you chose when you pulled that trigger. Better than surrender. Surrender. Adrian laughed, sharp and cold. You think cooperation is surrender? You think building something that lasts is weakness? I survived 30 years in this life. Marcus tried to kill me and failed. Your uncle understood that evolution isn't surrender, it's survival. But you're too proud and too stupid to see the difference. The police cars rounded the corner, lights flashing. Why? Nico asked suddenly. Why not just kill me yourself? Why let them take me? Adrian thought about the list in his desk drawer, about all the names on it, about the promise he'd made to himself. Because I'm not that person anymore. And proving it to people like you is harder than pulling a trigger, but it's more important. The police surrounded them. Adrian raised his hands, stepped back, let them see he was unarmed and cooperative. They cuffed Nico, read him his rights, loaded him into a cruiser. One of the detectives approached Adrian. Morrison. They'd worked together on the Marcus Kane case. You want to tell me what you were doing in this alley? Having a conversation. About? The price of bad decisions. Morrison studied him, clearly skeptical but lacking evidence of anything illegal. Stay out of this, Voss. We've got it handled. I know you do. That's why I called you. The detective walked away, shaking his head. Adrian stood in the alley and watched the police cars drive off with Nico in custody, feeling the weight of what he'd just done. Not the weight of guilt, the weight of choice. He could have killed Nico. 5 years ago he would have. Would have made it clean, made it public, sent a message that would echo through every organization in the city. Instead, he'd chosen accountability, chosen to trust the system he'd spent 30 years corrupting. It felt strange, uncomfortable, like wearing someone else's clothes. But it felt right. Tommy picked him up 20 minutes later, drove in silence for a while before speaking. Word's going to spread about you letting the cops take Nico instead of handling it yourself. I know. Some people are going to see it as weakness. Let them. And if they test you, if someone else decides to make a move, Adrian thought about that, about how many tests would come, about how many times he'd have to choose the harder path. Then we deal with it the same way, legal, clean. We build something so strong that violence becomes irrelevant. You really believe that's possible? I have to. Otherwise, what was the point of any of this? The fallout from Romano's death rippled through the organization for weeks. The Italian families fractured into competing factions, some trying to maintain the legitimate businesses Romano had built, others reverting to old patterns. 3 separate investigations opened. 2 more arrests followed Nico's. Adrian kept his distance, let them destroy themselves without his involvement. It was painful to watch. These were people he'd known for decades, families he'd done business with. But he couldn't save them from their own choices. Instead, he focused on what he could control. The waterfront development project continued with Park's organization taking over the Italian stake. They renegotiated terms, brought in new investors, kept the momentum going. Dimitri's logistics division expanded into 3 new markets, hired 20 former associates who wanted legitimate work. The consulting firm landed a major contract with a tech company looking to navigate regulatory frameworks, ironic, using corruption expertise to help people stay legal. Money flowed. Not the explosive, dangerous money of the old days. Steady money. Sustainable money.
the kind that came with tax receipts and quarterly reports. 6 months after Romano's death, Rachel called Adrian into her office for a financial review. "You're officially legitimate," she said, spreading out documents across her desk. "Every business, every investment, every revenue stream, it's all clean. You did it." Adrian sat down, looked at the paperwork that represented his transformation. "Feels anticlimactic." Redemption usually does. People expect fireworks. They get filing cabinets. "Is this redemption or just a really elaborate tax strategy?" Rachel smiled. "Can't it be both?" His phone buzzed. Text from Sophia. "Dinner tomorrow? Just you and me. I want to talk about something." Adrian's chest tightened. That phrasing usually meant something serious. He texted back. "Of course." "Where?" "That Italian place you like." 7 p.m. He showed up 15 minutes early, nervous in a way he hadn't been since he couldn't remember when. Business negotiations didn't make him nervous. Violence didn't make him nervous. But his daughter saying, "I want to talk about something," had him checking his watch every 30 seconds. Sophia arrived exactly on time, slid into the booth across from him. She looked good, rested, happy, more settled than he'd seen her in years. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, sweetheart. You're scaring me with the mysterious meeting request." "Am I?" She smiled. "Good. You've scared me enough times over the years." Fair point. The waiter came, took their orders, disappeared. "I'm getting married," Sophia said. Adrian felt the world tilt slightly. "David proposed?" "Last week, I said yes." "That's—" His voice caught. He cleared his throat. "That's wonderful. I'm happy for you." "You don't look happy. You look like you're about to cry." "I'm not crying." "Dad." Maybe he was crying, just a little. He wiped his eyes, laughed at himself. "I'm happy. I am. It's just, you're my little girl, and now you're getting married, and I'm proud of you, so proud. You built a life that's nothing like mine. You became someone good." Sophia reached across the table, took his hand. "I became someone good because you showed me what the alternative looked like. You taught me what I didn't want to be. That's worth something." Not sure that's the parenting compliment you think it is. Maybe not. But it's true. She squeezed his hand. "And lately you've been teaching me something different." "What's that?" "That people can change. That it's never too late to become someone better. I've been watching you, Dad. The business transformation, the way you handled Romano's death, how you're actually trying instead of just talking about trying. I'm not sure I'm succeeding. You're still here, still working at it. That's succeeding." Their food arrived. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. "I want you to walk me down the aisle," Sophia said eventually. Adrian set down his fork. "You sure about that? People will know who I am. I know who you are. You're my father, the man who read me bedtime stories when I was little, who taught me to ride a bike, who called me every week while I was in medical school, even though I barely talked to you." She paused. "You're also the man who spent the last year trying to fix 30 years of mistakes. That's the man I want walking me down the aisle." Adrian couldn't speak, could only nod. "There's one condition," Sophia added. "Anything. David's family is going to be there, his mother, his sisters, his cousins. They're good people, Dad. Regular people. I need you to promise me no business, no old associates showing up, no drama. I know. I promise. This is your day. I'll be whatever you need me to be. I just need you to be my dad." "I can do that." They finished dinner talking about wedding plans, about venues and dates and guest lists. Normal father-daughter conversation. The kind Adrian had thought he'd lost the right to years ago. Walking Sophia to her car, she hugged him tight. "I love you, Dad. Even when it was hard. Even when I was angry. I always loved you." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything." She drove away and Adrian stood in the parking lot feeling like something had shifted. Like a weight he'd been carrying had finally lightened just enough to breathe. The wedding planning consumed the next 3 months. Adrian threw himself into it with the same intensity he'd once applied to criminal enterprises. He hired the best planners, found the perfect venue, made sure every detail was exactly what Sophia wanted. David's family was nice.
aggressively nice. His mother kept trying to bond with Adrian over parent stories. His sisters included Sophia in group texts about bridesmaid dresses. They were the kind of normal Adrian had thought existed only in television shows. They don't know, do they? Adrian asked Sophia one day while reviewing seating charts. About your past? They know you ran businesses that weren't always strictly legal. David told them the broad strokes, but they don't know details. And they're okay with that? David's mother said everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst day. She's good like that. Adrian thought about that, about being judged by your worst day versus your best intention, about whether the two could ever balance out. A week before the wedding, Tommy came to Adrian's office with news. We got approached, some guys from the old days. They want back in. Back into what? There's nothing to be back into. That's what I told them. They didn't believe me. Said there had to be operations running somewhere. Said legitimate business was just cover. What did you tell them? I told them the truth, that you meant it, that everything's actually clean now. Tommy sat down, looking tired. They laughed at me, called me whipped. Said Marcus had the right idea, trying to take over before you destroyed everything. Adrian felt the old anger rise, pushed it down. Let them laugh. Let them think whatever they want. We're not going back. I know, but... Tommy hesitated. Sometimes I miss it. The simplicity. Someone disrespects you, you handle it. Someone crosses a line, you send a message. Now everything's complicated. Lawyers and regulations and quarterly reports. You want out? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's hard. Changing. Being different. Some days I'm not sure it's worth it. Adrian understood. He felt it too. The pull of the old ways, the simplicity of violence, the clarity of fear-based respect. You know what Marcus told me? Adrian said. Right before he died. He said I would have done the same thing in his position. And he was right. 5 years ago, I would have. 10 years ago, I definitely would have. So what changed? I got a chance to see what it looked like from the other side. To be powerless while people plotted my death. To understand that every choice I made created a Marcus Kane somewhere down the line. He looked at Tommy. I don't want to create more Marcus Kanes. I want to create more, I don't know, people who have options, who don't think violence is the only answer. That's ambitious. It's probably impossible, but I'm trying anyway. Tommy stood to leave, stopped at the door. For what it's worth, I think you're succeeding. Slowly, but succeeding. The wedding day was perfect. Clear sky, warm sun, gentle breeze. The venue was a garden estate outside the city, all flowering trees and manicured lawns. Sophia had chosen a small ceremony, 70 guests, mostly David's family and their medical school friends. From Adrian's side? Just him, Rachel, Tommy, and Dimitri. The people who'd stuck with him through the transformation. Standing in the groom's area before the ceremony, David pulled Adrian aside. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity you gave my uncle. Adrian blinked. Your uncle? Joseph Reyes, he worked in your logistics division? You hired him last year after he got out of... David stopped. I'm sorry, this is awkward. After he got out of prison. Yeah, he'd worked for some of your old operations. Got caught in a sweep. Did 3 years. Nobody would hire him after. But you did. Gave him a real job, fair pay, treated him with respect. It means everything to our family. Adrian had no memory of Joseph Reyes specifically. Dimitri had hired dozens of people, many with criminal records, but clearly it had mattered. He earned it. We don't judge people by their past. Said David laughed. That's pretty ironic coming from you. Yeah, I'm aware. I just wanted you to know. It matters. What you're doing, building something that gives people second chances. It matters. They shook hands. Adrian felt something in his chest. Not pride exactly, but something close to it. The ceremony started. Adrian walked Sophia down the aisle, feeling every eye on him, knowing some people recognized him, knowing his reputation preceded him everywhere he went. But Sophia held his arm tight, smiled up at him, and in that moment, none of it mattered. He gave her away to David, watched them exchange vows, listened to them promise to love each other through everything life would throw at them. When they kissed, the applause was genuine, joyful. Adrian clapped until his hands hurt. At the reception, David's mother found him.
Adrian, I wanted to thank you for raising such a remarkable daughter. I can't take much credit. She became remarkable despite me, not because of me. Nonsense, she talks about you constantly, about how hard you've worked to change, about how much it means to her that you're trying. It's the least I could do. It's more than most people manage. She patted his hand. My late husband, David's father, he made mistakes, bad ones, hurt people he loved. But in the end, he tried to make amends, spent his last years trying to be better. That's all any of us can do, isn't it? Try to be better than we were. Adrian nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Later, during the father-daughter dance, Sophia rested her head on his shoulder. Thank you for being here, Dad. For being you. I'm sorry I wasn't better earlier when it mattered. You're being better now. That's what matters. The song ended. Sophia hugged him tight, then went back to her new husband, her new life, her new future. Adrian stood on the edge of the dance floor and watched her laugh with David's family, watched her be genuinely, completely happy. Rachel appeared beside him, handed him a glass of champagne. You did good, boss. She did good. I just didn't screw it up too badly. Take the win. They clinked glasses. What happens now? Rachel asked. You've legitimized the business. You've rebuilt your relationship with Sophia. You've proven change is possible. What's the next challenge? Adrian thought about that, about what came after redemption, about whether you ever really finished becoming better or if it was just a continuous process. I think I just keep doing this every day, making choices that lead away from who I was and toward who I want to be. That's it? No grand plan? The grand plan is not becoming Marcus Kane, not creating more Marcus Kanes, building something that lasts without feeding on itself. He sipped his champagne. Turns out that's harder than running a criminal empire. But more rewarding? Ask me in 10 years. The reception wound down. Sophia and David left for their honeymoon. Guests filtered out. Adrian helped with cleanup, carrying chairs and folding tables like a regular person instead of a former mob boss. Tommy found him loading centerpieces into a van. Boss, you don't have to do this. We can hire people. I want to. Feels normal. They worked in comfortable silence until the venue was clear. Driving home, Adrian took a detour past the hospital where he'd spent those days paralyzed. The building looked different at night, windows lit up, ambulances coming and going. Somewhere inside, nurses like Lena were saving lives. Doctors like Sophia were giving people second chances at health. He thought about the man who'd walked into that hospital planning an elaborate deception, who'd been willing to risk everything to expose betrayal, who'd survived only through luck and a nurse's conscience. That man had been desperate, angry, focused only on revenge and control. The man driving away was, what? Better? Redeemed? Changed? Maybe just trying, which, as Father Brennan had said, was the point. His phone buzzed. Text from Lena. Saw the wedding photos on Sophia's social media. You looked happy. Really happy. I'm proud of you. Adrian pulled over, typed back. Thank you for everything. You changed my life. You changed your own life. I just helped you see you could. Simple truth. Harder than it sounded. He drove home, parked in his garage, sat in his car for a moment before going inside. The empire he'd built was unrecognizable from what it had been a year ago. No drugs, no violence, no territories held through fear. Just businesses. Legitimate, boring, sustainable businesses. Some of his old associates were in prison. Some had disappeared. Some had adapted. Marcus was dead. Victor was serving 15 years. Romano was gone. Nico would spend decades in prison. The old world was dying. Maybe already dead. And Adrian Voss, the silent king, the man who'd survived his own empire trying to erase him, was building something new on its ashes. Not perfect, not clean, still carrying the weight of 30 years' worth of choices that couldn't be undone. But better. Trying to be better. Inside his house, he opened his desk drawer one final time, took out the list of names. He read through them slowly, let himself feel the weight of each one. Then he added a final line. I can't bring you back. I can't erase what I did, but I can make sure it stops with me, that the empire that killed you dies so something better can grow. That's not redemption, but it's something. It's a start. He put the list back, closed the drawer. Tomorrow he had meetings scheduled with investors, with lawyers, with regulators who still didn't quite trust him but were willing to give him a chance. He had quarterly reports to review. He had a legitimate business empire to run. He had a daughter who was proud of him. He had a life that wasn't perfect but was his own, built on choices instead of fear. The Silent King was dead. Adrian Voss was learning to speak again, learning to say the things that mattered, to make the choices that counted, to be the person his daughter could look at without shame. It was harder than anything he'd ever done. But every day he woke up and chose it anyway, because that's what change was. Not a moment, not a revelation, just a choice made over and over until it became who you were. And Adrian Voss was choosing to be better than the sum of his worst days. That was enough. It had to be enough. Outside his window, the city moved through its endless cycle, lights flickering, lives being lived, people making choices that would echo through the years for better or worse. Adrian had made his choices, had paid for some, was still paying for others. But tonight, his daughter was happy. Tonight, he'd walked her down the aisle as her father, not as the Silent King. Tonight, for the first time in 30 years, he'd gone to bed without checking for enemies at the door. And that, imperfect, incomplete, still carrying the weight of everything he'd been, was something like peace.